that's willing to make certain sacrifices. He's willing to sacrifice his rest. He's willing to sacrifice his happiness sometimes,
Right.
In order to make sure you're straight. That's actually a form of submission. And so that is a man surrendering it in his own way.
Just looks a lot different.
It looks extremely different. Every way that a man loves his wife is a form of submission. The man is a protector, right? If he is willing to lay his life on the line for his woman, right? If he's willing to die for his family, there is that is the ultimate form of submission. If you have a man that's willing to make certain sacrifices, he's willing to sacrifice his rest. He's willing to sacrifice his happiness sometimes,
right?
In order to make sure you're straight. That's actually a form of submission. And so that is a man surrendering it in his own way.
Just looks a lot different.
It looks extremely different. Every way that a man loves his wife is a form of submission. The man is a protector, right? If he is willing to lay his life on the line for his woman, right? If he's willing to die for his family, there is that is the ultimate form of submission. If you have a man that's willing to make certain.
Well, today, guys, welcome to Little Black But Another One. We are giving you guys a conversation. Men don't submit to their wives. That is not our job. The title is, yeah, it's a little bit explosive. Yeah, it's a bit mad. We want to trigger a few of you guys because we know you like a little trigger. You know what I mean? But the video was self-explanatory, or so one would say. We're going to discuss it on today's, conversation with my brother, Jay Anderson. I'm going to bring him up in a second or two. Do me a massive favor, like this live when you've come in, share it with somebody, and subscribe to this channel. We have great conversations, and today is no different than any other great day. I can see the ladies are coming in slowly in as well. Listen, don't forget as well, those of you returnees, you got the minerals, baby. Stay hydrated because the streets out there are hot. We are talking about men submitting to their wives. Oh, women, husbands submitting to their wives, men submitting to their women. Is this a thing? Is this real? Are men supposed to submit to women? What's the conversation about? We're going to break it all the way down for you today as well. Okay, I'm going to bring my co-host and we're going to get this conversation flowing.
Let's go.
Brother.
How are you, bro?
I'm good, bro. It's another day in a week. Another conversation, bro.
Let's go, man. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Everyone in the chat, welcome again. I've been lovely in the past 2 weeks, to be honest with you. So let's keep it going.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, man. All right, cool. So according to the video, obviously the young lady describes about submission and saying that a man should submit to, well, a man is submitting, to his partner when he loves her, etc., etc. But I guess obviously from just a basis to start a conversation, to you, what do you see as submission? What do you see as submission for your perspective?
You know what? She said it, yeah, and there's a book that I actually have, which is called Disciplines of a Godly Man, yeah. And there's a title under marriage which says Sacrificial Love. And the headings are death. So as she mentioned, we die to ourselves. So we'll go into this more later in detail. We also have suffering that's accompanied. There's also intercession. And then there's another aspect called sanctifying love, right? And that's making sure that we're loving ourselves enough, but not too much where we're being selfish. And then there's commitment, there's fidelity, there's communication, and then there's elevation. There's making a difference in your life, and then there's making sure we spend time to romance. So these are some of the things that, all women love, but I can guarantee you they don't particularly not all, but some don't fully understand what these things mean in terms of how a man is sacrificing. And before we even break it down towards a man and woman, think about your boss at work. Some of you who are entrepreneurs, who are your own bosses for a couple of years, and you're managing people, you know how that goes. Speak to your pastor. Speak to anyone who is in some sort of leadership position and tell them to tell you the truth of how hard it is and the sacrifices that they need to make. Because at the end of the day, for the people at the top, there's a vision, purpose, and drive they need to have. So that in itself, they submit to that purpose. They submit to that vision. And in order to have the people on board to say, come on, let's go on this journey, they also have to, they don't people please. They don't just listen to what everyone else has to say, but they have to submit to that sacrifice that they're now looking after all these people. And what they also have to understand is along that journey, people are going to fight them. People are going to disagree. People are going to be obstacles. People are going to be disruptive. So they have to also submit to the aspect of, in order to do what I need to do, I'm taking a risk. In order to say the truth, I'm taking a risk. In order to put my foot down and lead effectively, I'm taking a risk. Like, these are some of the aspects of what submission means. And we can transfer all of those things into marriage. Everything I've just mentioned is what a man has to do. Yes, a woman has to do a lot in general herself, but they mean something slightly different. But when it comes to a man, it's not about comparing. It's just understanding what does it mean for a man to actually sacrifice. And I'll leave it there before you go into detail. What do you think, bro?
I love that, bro. For me, submission, I'll take it from a more traditional route, I guess, or Google. I mean, that's what I mean. But it's simply just to yield to a greater authority. And for me, that's what submission is yielding to a greater authority. And so when we talk about this subject, submission, I think what comes into play is the greater authority for both of us is love, and since we know that God is love, that means submission is done in God. So when we follow the principles of God, in terms of what it means to love, 1 Corinthians 13, then we end up submitting to one another, right? So like the young lady said as well, in the loving of that woman, in the sacrificing, in the suffering, in the patience, endurance, in the times of taking the decision, and you may be the bad person. These are the acts of love, but they are also the acts of submission in doing so, because you're submitting to love. And so when you submit to love, that means the godly principles. I think that's the most important thing added into that, because when we talk about love, other people might have different aspects of love. From a Christian perspective, love God. So his principles on what love is what we follow. And so if I yield to that, I'm going to be enduring. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to cover wrongs. I'm not going to be quick to anger. I'm not going to boast. You know what I mean? I'm going to be patient with you. I'm going to see things from a godly perspective when I'm dealing with you. So for me, submission is, again, yielding to the greater authority, and the greater authority that I believe that we both have is to Christ, is to the Father. So yeah, very similar to yours as well, that aspect. In regards, obviously, to the video that she put across, she spoke about, obviously, her husband yielding to his wife, or a man yielding to a woman. Some people might not see it as submission, though. They might see it as, I'm just loving my woman. Why do we have to put submission as a title? What would you say if somebody said, why do you have to put submission alongside a man loving his wife? It's just a man loving his wife. What would you say to that?
When the Bible says we're not to treat our wives harshly, there's a reason for that. Shall we go into it? I don't think people here kind of understand really what I'm trying
to go into it.
Okay, there we go. So at times it's hard to love a woman because of the harshness that might come out of her mouth towards a man, which is why we talk about tame the tongue, which is why God talks about a woman respecting a man. The mandate to the man was for a man to love a woman like Jesus loved the church, and there's a reason for that. So when we submit to that understanding, that means we're not going to treat her, or we ought not to treat her like a man. We ought to treat her like she's part of our own body. That's what the word says. So that's why it talks about loving ourselves. Because if we love ourselves, we're going to love the person who we see as our rib, or the original translation, who comes from our side. So to me, this topic is about submitting to that understanding. Again, it's not about who is, this aspect is not about who is boss and etc. We talked about it already, and we can continue talking about that. But this aspect is about, in order to love my wife properly, who do I need to be? I can't be someone who is authoritative. I can't be someone who is not a protector. I can't be someone who is not a provider. Whatever degree you can do that. I can't be someone who doesn't give her stability, because she is not going to feel love from me. So it's submitting to that understanding. That's how I see it.
Do you know what? It's mad, because what you just said there is really key. Like you said, obviously being gentle with your wife. I think this is the reason why I say that choosing a wife is probably the first most important thing you can do, because you've got a limit. You've got a limit on how gentle your gentleness will last. But not only just that, also as well, whether gentleness will actually work, because that
I'll talk
person,
about that in a second.
you know, will they outrun your patience? Will they outrun your endurance? Will they outrun your care? Will they outrun, you know, you're not quick to anger? So choosing the right partner is quintessential in the beginning, because it gives that grace period for that person. Whereas when we have chosen someone that is not for us, you know, you do begin to question, at what point do I change my format now? Because gentle is not working, patience is not working, endurance is not working, you know, talking love is not working. You know what I mean? Like, so choosing the right person as a man or as a husband, to husband to be, is very important, because, like you said, the call for man is that he's to love his wife and be gentle to her. In fact, the Bible says, "Dwell with women according to knowledge." As well, and it says it's better to live in a corner of the roof than to live with a contentious woman. So, you know, there are wisdom and pearls that are given by the word in terms of loving that woman, but also as well in terms of even being careful who you marry, because this makes your job that much harder to do from the man's perspective in this regard. You know,
I agree. Hold on, I'm just gonna answer some comments. So the book is called Disciplines of a Godly Man, for those who are asking. And someone asks, if a woman's a Christian, isn't she supposed to love her man as Jesus Christ is? The answer is yes, but we're specifically talking about marital structure in terms of what the Bible says. We're all supposed to love each other like you know, like Christ does. Like we say that we love Christ, we're all supposed to do that. But there's a key understanding that when you get into this level of relationship, right, because we're talking about marriage, there's a different level of understanding that comes with it. And a lot of men will say, my wife loves me. Yeah, she does. I can't question that. But when asked, does she respect me? That's when the questions start. Okay, maybe not, maybe not, maybe not. So as a man, because what Coach is talking about now is, okay, we can be patient to a default, because as men, some men are harsh, but a lot of men are soft at heart, right? Not that we enjoy being soft, but we understand too, we have to be a certain level of soft in order to connect to our woman, because we have to speak to her emotions. One thing I said to my missus, that the tagline is, we need to be able to kiss your hearts. That she needs to be able to melt. That's not going to happen if as a man you're just harsh all the time. So when we talk about the word submission, it's understanding, what do I need to do to make my wife happy? And don't get me wrong, the wife also needs to do what she needs to do to make the man happy. It's a two-way job. But this is what we're submitting to. We're submitting to that. I don't entertain struggle love, but we're submitting to the sacrifice, to the suffering, to the things that we need to do. Just like a woman is submitting in the context of marriage to a man, she's putting her life on the line when she's having a baby, if we're following the correct structure. As a man, he's putting his life on the line to protect you. If something happens out on the street, who is she calling? You know, if something happens while you're just walking on the street, he has to step up and do what he needs to do. So this is where the key difference is. It's not just the overall thing about love, but it's specific to, in a marital context, what exactly does it mean? And to me, you have to talk about these things. You have to address these things. Because even yesterday, I was speaking to my missus. We also have like good podcast type conversations. She just doesn't want to be on camera, right? And I was saying to her, as a man, what I've been through is trying to understand. And then, like you said, Coach, I realized at a point it was to my detriment. Because although in the moment I felt that way, how she now reasoned with it caused more issues in the relationship down the road. However, if I was to be seen as less understanding and put my foot down, etc., that would still come with its issues. So as a man, we have to decide, which way do we want to go? We're going to get issues either way, but which way do you want to go? And for me, I had to realize is, as a leader, you got to put your foot down. You can understand to a degree, but there are certain things it's a no. This is not what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go. Yes, you're probably going to get attacked. You're probably going to get all types of things that will come your way. But ultimately, if you have chosen the right woman, that Koji is saying, whether she needs to sleep on it, whether she needs to think on it, she will come back and say to you, do you know what, babe? You are right. if your missus can't do that for, then excuse me, there's problems. Because trust me, because she wants a man who can lead, and she feels that she can't even, that her man is not wise enough for her to change her own mind beyond the emotion. There's a problem, and this is what a lot of people experience. And like a lot of women haven't even seen their mothers to be like this with their fathers. A lot of women haven't even seen this in their households. They don't even know what it's like. So the idea of a man putting his foot down, the idea of a man leading her, it's crazy. It's no way. Why can't we do this together, etc. Listen, there is no successful business, successful anything where two people are moving forward in the same way. There always has to be one who is leading and always has to be one who is being led. Even if they're at the top, that's always the dynamic. If not, they end up going their separate ways. So we have to be careful.
Yeah, and I think this question, if your wife's a Christian and sister a Christian, shouldn't she love you like Christ does? And so actually, the most intriguing thing is that actually that she does love the husband like Christ does. I'll give an example. There's two forms when it comes to Christ: how we relate to Christ and how Christ related to the Father. So when you look at those dynamics, you'll see how the man and the woman role plays in. So when you read, for instance, when he talks about that Ephesians 5, when it talks about how we're to love our wives like Christ loves the church, that's the man loving the husband loving the wife. That's the man loving the woman, right? And in that aspect, what he's to do is to love her in all instances, right? But the second part of this is when you look at the relationship between Christ and the Father on earth, and specifically talking about on earth, whilst on earth, you'll see he plays more of a quote unquote a woman's role. What do I mean by this? He always says, I only do what I see the Father doing. His form of love and devotion to the Father is through respect. Whatever you say, I'm going to go. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. Whatever you tell me to go to this place, I'm going to do it. Yet when the role with us, how he displayed it was husband to wife. But when him and the Father are relating, I'm not saying he's a woman, but I'm saying he plays almost in a similar, I'm talking about the kind of ideology. He takes a submissive role where he goes, whatever the Father tells me to do whilst I'm on earth, I do it. If he says go left, I go left. If he says I should heal this person, I heal this person. Right? You hear at points, even in Gethsemane, where Christ at one point saying to them, hey, look, he says to the Father, hey, if you can take this cup from me, take it. I don't even want it. You know what I mean? Right? So it's not a relationship where he's not going to say anything, but what he's saying is that if it's your will, I'll do it. But, you know, I'm seeing what's going on, and even me, you know, if it's not necessary, I don't have to go for it. So what does that really mean? It means that even Christ was modeling the original relationship that we were supposed to come into. And so the aspects of our relationship, the reason, and you mentioned this as well about how when it comes to the man and the woman, what's really powerful about this, and that makes it very powerful in this situation, is that it is the way that we love one another that's different. Like it's the reason why a man has to love a woman, and the reason why a woman has to respect a woman, is because I think the wording of this love, or the understanding of this love, is how it is displayed. Because if you say you love me, how I want to interpret it is in the respect. How women want to see the interpretation of the love, it's not the respect. It is in the loving. It's in the emotions of the loving. It is in the care that's taken. It's in the understanding. It's in the protection. It's in those aspects. But for us specifically, what makes me feel loved is that you respect me. And how that comes into play is that when we're talking, you respect me. And when we're discussing things, you respect me. If we're arguing, we have a respect in this aspect, right? When we're out and about, you don't talk behind my back. You cover me. This is how we see the love aspect. So it's different, okay, in terms of when it comes to a man and a woman, because our roles are different. I think this is why it's really important as well, because our roles essentially are different, and it's needed to be understood, because I can't run away from this situation. And now a kind of woman. You're gonna want me to love you in that way because you are built as a woman, and you're gonna want to love me in this way because I'm built as a man. So those two things are very, very important. It's not to say that women don't want respect, and it's not to say that men don't want love. It's to say that when we both want love, but how it's defined oftentimes is slightly different, right? So, just to kind of bring that into alignment. And so how that ties into submission is that if I'm truly following Christ as love, and I am doing everything that Christ was doing for the body of Christ, then how I see you is I serve you. This is the most important part. And in turn, you serve me. That's the mutual submission. But how it plays out is I love you and you respect me. That's how I kind of see things, That kind of answered their question a little bit. Really? Someone asked another question. Wait, David asked one. I'm going to come to David's question after. Okay. It said, why is submission from women important to men?
Shall I go?
Go for it, bro. Yeah, from rules.
It's how we feel loved, just like bro coach just said. It's how we receive. You ask a man, does my missus love me? He'll probably say yes, but does she respect me? He may hesitate, because that's what speaks to him. If any man who feels respected is gonna fly. I've got a few friends, right, who are married, and one of the reasons that he said to me, in fact, I'll even say it all straight. He even said to me that the sex with his ex is so much better, but he said he doesn't care because she gives him something that he's never got before. And when I asked him, okay, what is it, bro? He said respect. He said the way I feel and all the things I want to do for her. Don't get me wrong, the marriage is not perfect. We go through ups and downs, but there is no one else that I'd rather go through these challenges with, because no matter what we go through, she respects me. I said, wow. This is what it means to a man to be respected, to feel respected. The same way it feels to a man to be respected amongst his peers, to be respected by his children. It really speaks to us in a way that, again, it's not that women don't want to be respected. Of course, we shall respect each other. But men don't really complain about not being loved. We complain about not being respected. Yes, women do talk about respect, but the greatest issue that we have is women not feeling loved. And that's the difference. Because we'll come to David's question in a second, but this kind of what leads on to the fact that we're not the same. We are clearly not the same. We wasn't built the same. We wasn't built to tackle the same things. We was built differently, and therefore we need to be catered towards differently, which is why the same thing can affect us differently. The world is such a mess today because we're all just busy trying to be the same, fighting each other, what I want, and all that is nonsense. When we start actually catering towards each other and not this versus mentality, then we'll understand how relationships become better. But we have to do the work in ourselves. But go on, bro.
Yeah, no, you hit on it, to be honest. I think personally why submission is important from women to men, and I'll talk about this from, I would say, good men. Why it's important is because I don't have the time to explain every single thing. I'm going to go there. I'm going to be wild today, but because I don't have the time to explain every single thing in fullest detail. And sometimes there is impending danger, which is not physical. I'm not talking about someone rushing towards you to fight. I'm not talking about that. That's, we're not in that day and age anymore, right? Where we normally have physical impending danger. But even that so, right? It's the reason why is because of the way that we interpret the roles that we play, right? I've said this before. When you're at work, nobody wants to deal with a difficult employee. Nobody does. I'm sorry, nobody does. You don't want to deal with a difficult colleague. Yeah, when you know what I'm saying. And one of the ways to be a great employee is the one that's not moaning all the time, that's not complaining all the time, that's not trying to fight you on every decision, that's not saying I don't want to have to do this if I don't have to this. The greatest employees are the ones that say, "Joe, I heard you." Maybe they might even offer pushback. I don't know if this works, but let's try it and then see. But I think there may be another way of doing it, or offering something in a respectful manner that says, "Actually, I don't necessarily agree. How does this work?" Right? So it's a respect that comes from that employee. Now, if anyone's been at work, y'all know you've been with some people that you've seen them, you're looking at them like, these people, this is wild. Like, just seeing how they behave, like, And so when you, and I'm taking it as an example, because we're not saying that a woman is an employee of a man. What I'm trying to describe specifically before anyone says it, is that it's about the aspect of what you were talking about, the psychology of it, right? If you are a boss at work, if anybody's ladies, I know ladies are boss at work here now, which is even beautiful, brilliant. We can actually give us an example. Those of you who are bosses at work, managers at work, line managers, some of you are even employees, whichever one. Do you want to deal with a difficult manager or a difficult employee? That's the question I'm asking. If you never want to deal, if you don't want to deal with somebody, and you know what kind of difficult I'm talking about, you know the one that always has a smart comment, the one that says I don't want to do this, the one that don't do the work efficiently, the one that doesn't pull their weight. When you talk about difficult employees, nobody wants to deal with that person, right? And if you're a manager or a line manager, when you have people underneath you, that person who's annoying just stops the flow of work, and then they put you in a bad mood, and then it's like you get into unnecessary fights. And the reason being in this aspect is because we all want to have a smooth process when it comes to having to work together. And so from a man's perspective, if my job is to lead and to protect, and that comes in different formats, by the way, when we say protect, and to provide and all that stuff, then I don't want to have to be going back and forth in a particular way that's going to cause tension within the relationship.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So it's not saying that it doesn't mean that don't push me back. You know, it doesn't mean you know, that you can't disagree. It doesn't mean that we're not going to butt heads. What it means is, will you do it in a respectful manner? You guys have followed me on the channel long enough. When people come into the space and certain men speak in a certain tone, you want me to get rid of them. Why? Right? See, no, we don't make excuses for those type of men, right? When those men come into a space like this and they start talking reckless, y'all be like, get rid of him, get rid of him. Why? Because he disrupts the flow. It's no longer a safe space. You're not making it easy to be able to get along with. And I get that, right? So in a relationship, the same thing. And I'm talking this from two formats, because the question is specifically for the woman submitting to a man. I don't want to have to deal with a difficult person. This is biblical. It's not even just me. Bible even tells the contentious woman, it's better for you to be in the corner of the house. So it's about finding a respectful manner and how to challenge. Just like you don't just roll up into your boss's door, bang the door and say, hey, I disagree with everything you just said a minute ago. You have a respectful way of dealing with things. Same thing in a relationship. There has to be a respectful way of dealing with it when it comes to your man. This is not saying that, again, that you are an employee in your relationship. What it's saying is there's a respectful way of doing this. And you know it, because when you go to work, you don't just talk recklessly to your boss. You don't talk recklessly to the manager. You don't talk recklessly to the CEO. When you disagree, you approach it in a particular way because you want to be respectful and you're mindful. So the same way it comes in a relationship, it's the same way. So we're saying that it's important for us because again, it shows that you're not trying to disrespect me and you're not trying to hurt me. You know what I mean? And that's also our interpretation of love. But of course, if you're doing all of this good stuff that we're talking about for the wrong man, yeah, it ain't gonna work. So let's not conflate the wrong man with a good man, because some of you have done what I've said, but you've done it to the wrong man who's taken advantage of you. That ain't the man you need to be doing it for. And that's where accountability comes in for each party. Just saying, you know what I mean? But I don't know if you want to add, bro.
Well, you said it beautifully, and someone mentioned, and I understand this because a lot of women have this issue where that word submission, in their mind, it's an insult. It's a power dynamic that they can't get over. And to me, like for anyone who's having that, usually they say, oh, when I meet the right type of man, when I meet a man who makes me want to submit, that's all cool to say. But the truth is, when that man, good man, comes along, you're not just going to easily switch it off, because this is how you've been throughout your whole life. So in order to speak to that man and serve that man the way he needs, understanding that submission is not about power in your marriage. It's about service. And I'll use the word positioning. As a woman, you can get way more out your man by submitting in the way that he needs, being feminine, talking to him in a way that serves him. Just like a man can get so much more from his woman by loving her the right way. It's as simple as that. And do you know what? It's not actually hard what we're saying. What makes it hard is what we've been through. What makes it hard is society. What makes it hard is our frustrations and our anger. This is why, when you talked about in the beginning, submitting to Christ is so key. because submitting to Christ so that these characters are worked on, so that we don't become our own obstacles, so that we don't become our own problems. It's easy to throw blame. Easy to say, well, I'm not going to submit because he's like this. I'm not going to love her because he's like this. She's like this. It's easy to say that. But ultimately, we got so much work to do on ourselves for these things to actually become normal or rational for us that we don't even realize how far we have to go. Because these things, trust me, in a relationship, in a marriage where this is paramount, there will always be difficulties, but trust me, you're going to feel so much at peace. You're going to feel like, wow, I didn't know I could actually feel a love like this or a respect like this in a type of relationship. And unfortunately, if you've never had it or even seen it or been close to it in your life, it's going to be a difficult thing for you to come to terms with. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why God put this in place. There's a reason why he said, this is how it works. There's a reason why traditionally there were way more marriages, less divorces, and compared to now where people are just doing what they want, breaking up for whatever reasons they want, just know it's about me, it's about me. There's a reason why, definitely in the Western world, when it comes to relationships and marriages, it's a crazy place.
Yeah. And someone put here, respect is earned. And I would say, then why did you marry them?
Yeah.
No, I listen, I mean, I just want to be direct. If respect is earned, which I agree with, why did you marry them? If that man wasn't respectful, why would you marry someone like that? Secondly, submission is really a Christian principle. If you're not submitting, if Christ is not in it, this might not be for you. Do you know what I mean? This is from a Christian perspective. So, I don't think everyone's going to adhere to this. You know what I mean? But the best marriages, even the ones that don't have Christ in, have the same principle in, because the principle is of love. So it speaks to the man and the woman. So regardless of whether we believe in Christ or not and how he likes to do his things, if you look at any successful marriage, you'll see the same principle. And you'll see that you yourself also connect with some of those principles. Some of them we don't agree with, but you connect with it, right? And some of the things are inevitable. You can't get away from it. Like women having children and men having to work at that point in time. Hopefully, you know what I mean? It can be a case where she doesn't have to work for a little while. I say hopefully because the reality of life, it doesn't work like that. But that's a reality. It's a known fact. Women get pregnant. And as a man, the reason why you're not supposed to get pregnant too is because so you can work, right? And so your job is then to protect, right? Not necessarily from any wolves or anything out there, but it's protect in a sense, right? So there's these, I'm talking about this on a more hard line rule kind of aspect, but it's more of a Christian perspective, but the world uses a Christian perspective in order to regulate their relationships. And if you study anybody's good marriage, healthy marriage that's out there, you'll realize they follow the same principles. You'll see it, right? Yeah. Because again, whether we like it or not, the DNA in you and the writing that's in you, the programming, is from one God only, it's Christ. And he set the platform and how we are supposed to operate. So it flows in that particular way. Now, of course, there will always be anomalies. Someone might point out a culture in the Angolan forest and say that women are like this and men are like this. Fantastic. They are anomalies to the rest of the world. And there will always be anomalies to that situation. Don't use an anomaly as a whole perspective. None of you guys have said that, by the way. I'm just kind of, because other people watch this after. And sometimes you see these kind of comments. It's like, if I go into a rainforest or I go into the Amazon rivers, you'll see there's different tribes. And I'm like, yeah, but they ain't here. They're a small community. Okay, so we don't count them as a majority. But so let me go to David's question that he spoke of, because he put up the question. Okay, let me just do this. He put it there. So is there a difference between the way a woman submits to a man, Ephesians 5:22, verse 23, and the concept of dealing with a woman according to knowledge, 1 Peter 3, verse 7? In the meantime, I'll get that scripture up so we can actually look at it as well. So
whilst you're doing that, just, on the last question that you said, I'm going to push back on that someone else said. I'm going to play the contradiction card. So someone said respect is earned. Which means what? I'm not going to respect you unless you prove yourself, unless you show me that you're worthy of respect, right? Let's look at the scenario that someone else said about we don't live in those times where, going to walk on the street and going to fear being attacked. It could happen. But I remember speaking to one girl in my workplace. We used to just catch jokes, have a laugh, and she would just be open and frank just about how she feels as a woman. And she said she was with a guy. He was walking on the street with her. They was walking somewhere. Then a whole bunch of guys approached them and basically tried to rob him. She says the guy fell apart. And after that, she could not see him in the same way. What she said was she could not respect him in the same way. So when we talk about the topic of respect is earned, I understand clearly, again, like I said, the difficulty that so many women have gone through and so many people have gone through to actually put themselves in a position where they're looking after themselves, where they're, just trying to live life the best they can. And when a man comes along and says, respect me, it's almost like, my bro, are you sure? Because men have let me down, men have failed me. I understand all that dynamic. And as men, we need to make sure that how we're coming towards women, how we're conducting ourselves, what we do, what we show her is respectful. I'm not even saying, in fact, forget about how we are towards her, how we even carry ourselves, what we do, what we deal with. So that then leads me on to talk about, that was a situation where she needed to feel protected. And in that scenario, there was another guy across the street who knew the boys and knew her. So he walked across the street to kind of settle the whole issue. So the guy didn't end up getting robbed. But what she was saying is she needed to feel protected. And she can't rock with this guy because she doesn't see that he has the ability to protect him. So ultimately, yeah, we don't need to fear being attacked on the street, but women still want to feel that if I'm walking with you, if I'm with you, I need to feel that protection. I need to see that other men respect you. I need to see that other people are not going to try it with you. So I can never, so end of the day, most women are going to say this, how they actually want to feel from the bottom of their soul when it comes to their man. Even if they're earning £1 million, they still say they want to feel protected, they want to feel provided for, and they want stability. So to me, this is why I look at those statements as contradictory, because most women will tell you they want to feel protected, regardless if there's wild beasts outside, regardless of we're in a lawless society. None of that matters. It's about, again, serving her and speaking to her soul. So as a man, you have to be a certain way. You have to be protective. You have to look at her and say, do you know what? I care for you so much, like myself. I want to make sure that you're good at all times. And when a woman feels that way, she will talk about it. She will tell you. She will even tell her friends. She feels differently. So these are the things to be aware of. But again, we can go into another topic if you want. But yeah, it gets deep.
No, that's you're on point, bro. You haven't said anything that's wrong. You're on point, bro. So the scripture that he brought up, Ephesians 5, I've got it up on the screen as well. Actually, we kind of mentioned these two scriptures actually saying that, funny enough. But he said, obviously, is there a difference between the way a woman submits to a man and the concept of dealing with a woman according to knowledge? I think we kind of mentioned this a bit earlier on, actually, saying that. But I'll read. We can put both scriptures on the screen just so that we can have a look, so we know what scriptures we're talking about here. Let's put this up here. Okay. So Ephesians 5:22. Here we go. All right. So Ephesians 5:22 says, "Wives submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is the head of the church, and he's the savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let wives be their own husbands in everything." Just want to read slightly above it, because there's actually, the scripture breaks it up, but it actually shouldn't be. So given, let me read it from verse 17. "Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand the will of the Lord is, and do not be drunk with wine, which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart of the Lord, giving thanks always for all things to God the Father in the name of the Lord of Jesus Christ, submitting to one another in the fear of God. Then it goes on to wives, submit to your husbands as the Lord. For husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is the head of the church, and he's a savior of the body. Okay, therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let wives be to their own husbands in everything. Now, the key principle in this conversation here, okay, the key part in this conversation, which is sometimes missed out when we talk about this, is first and foremost, there is a equation, okay? Because if the husband is to be like Christ, then so we have to follow another principle, another scripture. I think it's 1 John, where it talks about the fact that he loved us first. Mm-hmm. This is the principle. And this is why he mentions love and respect. Because if you take yourself and you take God and your relationship, you'll realize it was his love that went out first, and that's where you then were found, and you were able to then respect who God is. All right. So the principle works and this is why scripture needs to be expounded, because otherwise it gets lost and people take it the wrong way. The principle actually is that a man should love a woman, not necessarily love a woman first as in that, but his overriding arch theme is the intention. So if I meet you, my intention should be clear so that you know exactly where you stand with me. And as I proceed with that intention, as I'm leading in that intention, as we're going along the way, you're going to see that my behavior should line up with my intention. I should be true in my word and true in my action. And as I'm doing that, I should have a care for you. I might not have a love for you. Let's be honest, we're human beings. I may not have a love for you, but I'll have a care for you at that particular moment. And how I treat you and how I discourse with you, how I handle you, is what you said earlier on, Jay, how I handle you and how I maneuver with you. So that when I'm maneuvering that way and my gentle speak and my gentle maneuvers, how I'm handling you, what should happen is that you should be able to feel safe in that environment, that this is not somebody who's going to kill me, right? It's not somebody who's going to take advantage of me. It's not going to be someone who's going to hurt me, right? And so it tells us that as a husband, dwell with women according to knowledge. This is 1 Peter 3, verse 7. You can see it here. I'll put it on the screen so you guys can see it, just so you know that we're not missing it. Husbands, likewise, dwell with them. I'm going to read it probably. Husbands, likewise, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as the weaker vessel, and being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. Okay, which is actually what we have to read above, because it's the context of it. 1 Peter 3 says, wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives. When they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear, do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging their hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. For in this manner, in former times, the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are, if you do good. You are not afraid with any terror. And then it goes on to husbands, likewise, dwell with them with understanding. Give honor to the wife as a weaker vessel, and being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. Man, don't get yourself in a situation where your prayers are hindered, okay? What are we really talking about here? What we're talking about is, first and foremost, understanding that it's a two-part equation. Just because you see that it addresses women first does not mean that is what happens first. We have to understand it in expounding scripture in its context. That's why I said once it gives us Ephesians 5 and it tells us that you're supposed to love your wife like Christ did, you go back to what did Christ do? Christ is the first part. So when Christ says first and foremost, he loved the church first, whilst we were yet sinners. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to love you first. In that, I'm supposed to also dwell with women according to knowledge. So I don't just pick no higgy girl. Yeah? I don't go and pick one random girl that I don't know anything about her and just choose her. And saying that, even when it was arranged marriages, they knew each other's families. So they would know about the other person through their family alignments. So it wasn't just, it's a random person, it's arranged marriage. No, they had to know each other's families. And similar enough, when a man goes to choose a woman, he must know of her. So there's a time and period where I'm getting to know you, understand you. Because we don't do arranged marriages now, I have to find out a little bit more about you, understand who you are, what you're about, Then when I do that, as I'm doing that, if this is the right person, I should be extending my love. But in between that time, I should be respecting you. I should be caring about you. I should be not doing you dirty, not disrespecting you. That's why we call it that period of time where you should be able to see that there's some red flags. Oh, baby, he did be doing this, doing that. You should be able to see, because my intention should be made clear, and my behavior should be one of respect for you in the beginning. So I don't know if you want to add on to that, bro, as well.
No, you actually said it perfectly. Like, one of the things I was thinking about while you were speaking and before is, as men, have that love from the beginning, but learn to love her more over time. And as women, have that respect in the beginning, but learn to respect him more over time as you get to know each other. That's the principle that we all fail at times, where we do too much too soon. But what we shouldn't do is be disrespectful from the beginning. What we shouldn't do is withdraw that love in the beginning. That doesn't make sense to me, because that is just, you know what, people still get in relationships like that. People still get married like that. But that's only going to be a toxic situation, because you didn't enter it into those situations serving each other in the first place. So you're always going to be operating at a place of lack. To me, this is what the scripture is saying. So husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner. That's not saying women, you're not good enough. That's not saying women, you can't do certain things. That is an acknowledgement of our position and what we need to be in your life, because we are different. That's it. We are different. Like, to me, there are going to be some women who will say being in a leadership position feels good, feels great. But let's be honest, a lot of those women are really talking like that because of that power dynamic that makes them feel good, depending on what they've been through. There's other women that controlling nature is how they feel comfortable, not being able to let go, right? But what this scripture to me is saying is that in women, with what I've just said, there's always going to be that conflict, that dynamic, i.e. that's not the position that they're supposed to play. So it's a conflict between how they're supposed to be and how they've had to become. And look at the way I'm saying it. I'm not saying women are ABC. Like, we understand how life has been set up. You've had to become a certain way. But this is why women still ask for the man to play his role. Respect as the weaker partner. We still have to play our role. We still have to look inwards and be gracious towards you. We still have to play that position that God has given us, because that's truly how you feel comfortable. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term. We'll get there over time, but that's how you truly feel comfortable, being able to let go. And to me, this is what all these scriptures are basically trying to tell us. Serve each other in the way that we're supposed to. When we stop doing that, that's when problems start happening. That's when we go our separate ways. That's when the whole world starts fighting. And until we double back from that, we're not going to get to a better place until we actually start waking up and realizing we need to grow, we need to mature, we need to heal out of the things that are preventing us from actually doing those things in the first place. Because, ladies, I'll say it again, when you respect a man in the right way, the way he will love you will be incredible. Men, when you love a woman in the right way, the way she will respect you will be incredible. But it points back to wisdom. It's not everybody. Not everybody's going to serve you. Not anyone who's pretty, has a nice body, has a nice car, whatever the case may be, trust me. Some of the reasons that we use today to say we're interested in someone are very stupid. It doesn't mean anything. Like, what matters most is the person's character. And we have to take time to understand that. But we're going to get the best out of our character by doing our job. You know, one of the things that I don't know if we talked about this off camera last week, but when we talked about a lot, but in fact, I'll say this. When we die, we're going to be accountable for ourselves, right? God is going to ask each one of us, what did we do? You can't come here and say, oh yeah, but this person and this person is going to be like, I don't care. What did you do? So I spoke to you. I didn't give allowances. I didn't give considerations. I didn't give maybes, or I didn't give hesitations. I didn't give being defensive. I didn't give excuses. I just asked you to do A. So regardless of what the other party is doing or not doing, God has still asked you to respect. God has still asked you to love. These are the things we're accountable for. And how on earth can we get any relationship or marriage to a better place if, because of what the other person's doing, we are choosing to not do what we're supposed to be doing? You might as well go your separate ways. Because in relationships, you're going to go through your ups and downs. There's going to be times where you don't like each other. There's going to be times where you realize, wow, is this the person I married? Wow, I didn't marry this person. Who is this person? I may not trust him anymore. I may not trust her anymore. But ultimately, none of that is going to serve. And something that we also haven't said. You're serving each other, but you're also serving the relationship. You're serving the marriage. It's not about how I feel, but it's about what's best. That is actually sacrifice. That is actually submission as well. Let's not forget that. What is best for what we're trying to build, regardless of how we feel. A lot of pastors will tell you during counseling in another way, how does God see it? What would God do in the situation? What does he expect? Put feelings aside. What does he want you to do? And again, these scriptures, this is what, to me, what it's talking about. Submitting Christ-like in a way that God wants. Like doing these for the right person in the right situations. Trust me, you're going to find gold.
And I think that's what the most important aspect of these relationships are. And it's the reality is in these situations that many people have been hurt, both men and women on each side, right? So hurt men go in the opposite direction and use control and domination in their role. And then hurt women become combative and unresponsive and will not want to submit. And it's because both parties have been hurt. So their roles become inverted or roles become much more difficult to implement in a relationship, right? And you start seeing higgy hagger in all these types of relationships because the reality is a lot of people are hurt.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard. So when you hear this kind of teaching, it makes it very, very hard, right? Because the reality is actually, if we put a man's role in his proper position, you're asked to sacrifice. There's times where you have to look at him and be like, whew, so you want me to love this person through the situation? Wow, you're asking a lot right now. You know what I mean? Like you're asking a lot right now, but you got to do it. You know, there's times where you have to do it. You're gonna have to love your wife through moments where you're like, like what? Do I really want to do these? Do I really want to do that? Like, do I really want to be able to do it? Like, it can be very difficult. So, we have to. That's why I said we have to put the standards back into its place, so that each party knows exactly where they stand. Because if you go back to 1 Peter 3, I put it as NLT, and I love the breakdown. It says, in the same way, you husbands must give honor. First of all, we even miss this part here. Give honor to your wives. Do you see that? Give honor to your wives first and foremost. So as much as we talk about love, also to honor your wives. Appreciate them, show them care, show them appreciation. You know what I mean? Like big them up. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a part of it. And then it says, treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are. Watch this part. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. That's the key part. She's still equal to you. So it's not about a position where it's where someone is going to be like, okay, because you're the weaker vessel, I get to do whatever. No, treat her as an equal partner, meaning that I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm not gonna throw my weight around. I'm not gonna fight you. I'm not gonna be treating you badly. What that means is I've got to love you like Christ does, because you are also a part of God's creation. You are also an inheritor of his grace. You're also an inheritor of his kingdom. And so in that aspect here, when we say we're equal, yes, in the aspect of the fact that you are another human being, God's creation, and you are an inheritor of his kingdom. So how do I treat people who are inheritors of his kingdom? The same way I would treat myself, you know what I mean? With love, appreciation, care, respect. And that's how we're supposed to deal with things, especially as the husband in this aspect when it comes to. So the way I treat you is what we're talking about. The way I treat you is what I'm talking about. The roles we play can be different, but how I treat you should still be equal, as in what? An inheritor of the kingdom. There's a difference. We are what? Playing our roles, and they are different. But the way I treat you is still with respect. So the problem that we have oftentimes in society is the roles are different, but then people don't treat people with respect. People don't love on people. And this is what people have experienced, an abuse of that power or that role. And it makes it very hard then when we put this message across, because it's like, well, you just trying to tell me I should shut up. And like, nobody said that. But because that's what you've seen, that's the interpretation that gets brought into the situation. And it's like, no, that's not what it means, you know? So I think there's always that part that's also important as well that comes into play, you know? Yeah.
I agree. What I'll also even add, like when we speak about Jesus, how did he lead? He wasn't nice all the time. He was quite direct a lot of the time, whether that be to the Pharisees or other people. He had to lead that way. He couldn't be someone that's just a walkover, but he did retreat when it was the right time to retreat, to recuperate, to rejuvenate, to assess what's going on, right? Now, let's now take that to marriage. As a man, these are the things we have to do, but we have to do this in love, in true leadership. We have to lead in love. We have to lead with understanding. We have to lead with wisdom. We have to lead with care. And on the woman's side of things, imagine if a man is trying to do that. And this is to answer a question that was asked earlier, but you don't want to listen. He's going to see that as you do not respect me. And a man who does not feel respected by his woman is a man who is not fulfilled. That's it. And you will see it, and it will probably irritate you. You'll probably get angry, but you need to double back and think, why has this been the dynamic? And don't get me wrong, as men, we're accountable for ourselves about what we allow. I was speaking to an older man on Monday, and he said where he's from, even if the woman's at fault for destroying a marriage, they will always blame the man because he's the leader. That's what we submit to. We submit to being the fall guy. In business, when something happens, the CEO or whoever may have not caused that, but because they're the top person, the buck stops with them. There are many pastors who will say, look, end of the day, Eve did what she did. But let's look at Adam. Adam, what's going on, bro? Did you not speak to Eve? And when she did what she did, why did you not intercede for her? Why did you just go to God and say, oh, look what she did? That's not what you should have done. So these are the things that we people do talk about it, but these are the things that we miss in the dynamic in terms of what are we supposed to do? Because what Eve should have done is go and ask Adam, my guy, my babes, my husband, this occurred. What should we do? That's what should have happened. But again, it goes back to a lot of women have not been in a position where they could actually trust a man in that way, and that's understandable. I'll even speak for myself. Because of the types of women that I chose in my life, I got to a point where I found it very hard to trust a woman emotionally because I too much erratic behavior, too much contradictions, and I don't want to hear the apologies afterwards when you've already destroyed the relationship. But I had to not allow that to make me bitter, resentful, scared, angry, because I knew I could not love any woman in the right way if I carried these things. And that's what I say to everyone here. Even if you've been through what you've been through, if you want the best out of your relationship, the best out of your marriage, you need to make sure you go through that healing process so you can serve that person in the way that you need to. And the way that you need to is what I read in the scripture. So thank you, David, actually, for mentioning those scriptures, because these scriptures are what's mentioned in all marriage ceremonies anyway. But are people really deep in it? Are we just saying it, or are really deep in what it actually means? What does a man leading actually means? What are the sacrifices? I even say this, right? I was with someone for, let's say, around 5 years. 3 years in, we was having a discussion. I say a discussion, it was a heated debate, right? And she was just talking about the things that she sacrificed. And as soon as I said, okay, I'm not going to take none of those things away from you, I actually agree and I'm thankful. And then she wanted to end the conversation. I said, no, hold on a minute. Now let me speak. While I was speaking about what I sacrificed, she was looking at me as if I said something strange. Up to that point, it had never occurred to her that I had sacrificed anything because I'm a man. But to lead through all the things that we go through in relationships, marriage, children, trust me, there's going to be a lot of sacrifice that we're speaking about. So this is a call to everyone that stop this verses, stop this, because of what I've been through, stop that. It's not serving anything. Like, just understand who you need to be. And someone mentioned a lot of women are marrying men that they don't respect. I think any sensible marriage counselor will tell you, if you can't respect a man, don't marry him. If you can't imagine him leading you, if you can't imagine you calling him your leader, don't marry him. It's just going to be a recipe for disaster. Yeah, people can change, people can do all of that stuff, but the likelihood is, depending on what age you are, that's just how they're going to be. So don't settle, take a step back. And I say the same thing to guys. If you're with a woman who does not like to listen, who's always argumentative, always negative, always, she will complain that you're trying to control her, but she's doing the exact same thing, walk away. Do not marry, because it's a recipe for disaster. That's one of the best advice I can give you. Because we don't need to go through it. Men or women, we don't need to go through it. Not just to have someone in our lives, not just to be married. We don't need to go through that, because it's problematic. Just sit back and wait. Wait for God to truly send you that person. But make sure you have discernment, because many people are going to come your way. So it's not just about wanting to be in something, but being with the right person. And I think that's another of people's issues. Having that wisdom to understand how they need to be, having that wisdom to understand how the person needs to be, and just waiting until things fall into place. No such thing as perfect. I don't even like even talking about it. But there's certain things that need to fall into place. But you need to address yourself first. Are you even what you want? Are you even that person that can be loved that way? Are you even that person that can be respected that way? That's where it starts, because a lot of anger is really not about the person. It's about us. Not really trying to forgive ourselves, not admitting that we need serious work, struggling to look at ourselves in the mirror and just be honest. That's where a lot of it starts. And and this is just years and years and years, same like coach, of speaking to people, seeing a lot of things, and just realizing there is a pattern that is at play, that we all fall into, a serious pattern at play. And sometimes it's the surface level conversation that's not serving us, but getting into this nitty gritty, deep, and actually just accepting this actually is what it is. I'll go back to, this is how we're going to serve each other. This is how we're going to serve our relationships, serve our marriages. At the end of the day, when we die, we want to be able to say to God, I did my best.
Absolutely. That's it. Yeah, bro, spitting. I mean, I would say that, as well, I think that's why I went back to the original point of accountability for each individual person, right? So it's tough to say it, but everybody needs to be accountable, both men and women, right? So if there's a pattern of women you keep meeting, then you have to assess yourself.
Yeah.
Why do I keep meeting these women? If you're a woman that keeps meeting a certain type of man, you have to assess, why do I keep meeting this man? You cannot let your assessment always go out on the external, because you are the common denominator in all the positions. So a lot of times what's happening is in these relationships is people are exhibiting their trauma in the relationship. So even before you even get into a relationship, we are choosing men who represent our father, who we don't like. And then we're choosing women who represent our mothers, who you might not even like, right? There can be inverses of this. There can also be the case where someone's got daddy issues, and the way that he needs to exhibit emotional control or whatever on the woman comes from how he dealt with dad. A woman can have issues with mama, and she can deal with certain ways and want to see things in her husband too. Whatever the case is, a lot of the times the issue isn't the other person, it's you. And what I mean by that is not that they don't have issues, but rather that marriage is a reflection of us trying to work out these issues, and that the person is a reflection of you. And for me as a man, I have to choose someone who I believe fits that model, right? That is willing to grow with me, to learn with me, but also to serve with me. Because those are the most important aspects, but also humble enough to also see that I'm not going to always be the problem. And I have to be humble enough to always see that she's not always a problem. That the other person, looking at the other person, always looking externally, doesn't solve our issues. A lot of times, and I said this before on the channel, a lot of the arguments people get into, they'll be like, they did this, and I'll be like, well, if you've had like 5 good years and you're not actually good and they're having this argument, Do you know that maybe you're assuming what they're gonna do, and you're triggered, and they see you being triggered, then they get triggered by your triggered, and you triggered by the fact they're triggered by your trigger, and they're triggered. Like, do you know what I mean? And it becomes a vicious cycle. But you think you're right, and you know what I mean? That's one aspect. But a lot of times, well, like I said, like people have seen very poor representations of good, healthy dynamics between a husband and a wife, right? And so what happens is, you see those bad experiences, you plug them into your mind, and it's very hard to get away from that. And when you see similar patterns emerging, you say, oh, no, that can't be for me. You know what I mean? So for instance, when we're seeing, okay, you know, that submission doesn't work, I would say to you then, maybe you haven't seen a good example of submission. That's why you're saying it doesn't work. Because I can guarantee this now, a good submission works. I tell you this for free, it works. Because even from my perspective as a person leading, the person who's being submission makes me want to even do more for them.
Yes.
Do you see? We spoke about this last week, that you know, the way that you approach us in certain dynamics can make me do even the more than you even asked for. How you requested can make me do all the more you asked for. This is why David is a man after God's heart. You see, the way that David worships, you and I, we don't know worship this way. This is why when you go and kill somebody, you end up in prison. This guy is free. Now, joking aside, but there's a way that David worshipped that made God like, this is a man after my own heart. This guy just be worshiping differently. He knows how to tap into God in a particular way that God's like, this is my guy. This is my guy. You know? Why is it that David's a man after God's heart? Because of the way he would worship. The way he would worship, and worship in a sense is the way that we give honor and give respect to the very thing we're talking about. How do you live your life in conjunction with your heart? You know what I'm saying? So the way that David did his things with God, the rest of the people couldn't comprehend. David is David, and what he's given us is a blueprint that, similarly enough, the way that you approach me, the way that you respect me, the way that you're giving me love and the respect that I need from you, means that there's no way no one else can come in and tell me nothing. This is my, are you all right? I did a video this other week, Devel Ellis and Kadeen. The way he talks about her, he bigs this woman up, puts her on, and he's like, yeah, bro, because of how he views her. And so when you get this aspect, you know, when you get this aspect where someone respects you so much, right, you're willing to even do more for them because of that level of respect that they have for you, right? So, and the same thing also for the aspect when we talk about the man and the woman for the man. You know, you said it earlier on. You know, we too, the way we're loving her, right? It's going to make her softer also at the same time to make her want to do things for you. So it's an interchange. It's not one way or one-sided. It's an interchange. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm saying from a man's perspective, first and foremost, I need to choose the right woman, right? And then I need to invest in her. I need to invest in her in my emotions, mentally, spiritually, financially, quote unquote, when you get married, sexually. I need to invest in all aspects of her, because as I do and I begin to put in, I'm going to receive. So first and foremost, I need to make sure I'm choosing the right kind of person. That's my accountability. And then for a woman too, your accountability is making sure you are choosing the right type of man that is worthy of your submission. They don't choose no mumu guy and then come and give us a testimony that men are all trash when the guy was mumu. You understand? Yeah, I don't want to hear it. And then my last point is, I give it the example was when I did a video on I think it's Diana from UK, her and Amit. And I said to the audience, watch this. We're going to break it all the way down. I'm going to show you that she needs to be accountable. People are like, how can you say that? He's the one that cheated on her. And I said, no, wait. You're going to see it. I didn't know her story. Got to the end. When she told her story, she said she spoke to her best friend, a guy that she was close to, ignored his recommendation that she shouldn't date him, and went ahead and dated him. You can't ignore the red flags. You can't ignore things that are basic facilities and then blame someone else. You have to look at it. And the same for me too. If I'm choosing someone, don't be ignoring red flags and then be going, women are all trash, women are all bad. No, I have to look at me. What's been deposited in me that I'm seeing in this particular way, and I'm choosing this type of woman. Everyone got to be accountable, baby. Go for it, Cap.
Even in a diner situation, right? Or diner. For those in America, we have a show here called Don't Tell the Bride. I think in America, I don't know if your version is Bridezilla, but it's slightly differently. So this is where this couple got married a couple years ago. And even in the show, you could see that she was a person who wasn't really sure. He was in it, but she wasn't really sure. You could tell that, okay, this is not, the fairy tale of it is great, but this is not the type of situation it needs to be. And now we're here many years later where, like Coach said, she's, I guess, not realizing or not saying that she needs to be accountable for the decision that she made from the very beginning. Trust me, I've been there. And I've had to look at it and say, do you know what? I've made these decisions at the end of the day, regardless of how the person behaves. They will always show me how they're going to be. I just choose to ignore it and go with what I want to go with anyway. And this is something that we all literally have to sit down and just be okay with admitting. That being able to say sorry, being able to admit when we're wrong, being able to be accountable. I personally don't understand why these things are hard, but I get it. But the moment you do these things, you lift so much weight off your shoulders. And there's a few questions here in regards to what does it mean in terms of decision making. If you are saying that this man is your lead, is your leader, you're going to submit to him, is he the final decision maker? Yes. Are there men who are not wise? 1,000%, which is why we're talking about the right man. Are there men who will lead you the wrong way? 1,000%. That's what we're talking about, submitting to the right man. But if you are going to say to a man, regardless that he is your lead, yes, he has the final say. But you have to agree with this. You have to agree. And the final say does not mean he does not consider how you feel. Does not mean he discounts you. I use the terminology, we're part of a board. God is the chairman, but we're part of a board. I might be the CEO. You might be the COO or whatever, but I'm going to reach out to you to hear what you have to say. Because what you're talking about, even though I'm overriding, you will understand it so much more than me. And based on your information, I'm going to consider information from different places, if not maybe just you, then I'm going to decide, okay, where should we go? And as I'm making that decision, I'm going to say, okay, I've thought about A, B, C, D, E. This is where I believe we should go. That's what it looks like. What he then needs is because someone mentioned it, cooperation versus submission, but what he then needs is your cooperation. Because submission is really, there are going to be things that you don't like that you just need to go with. I'm not talking about destructive things. I'm talking about things you might say go left, you might say go right, but it ends up going right was actually good. That's fine. But there's going to be times where it's completely unknown. But to get where you need to get to and not be an obstacle, you need to have that cooperation. This is what it looks like. And this is why in the manosphere, in the red pill, in the red pill area, they talk about cooperation. It's not just saying no because you want to say no or because you have a voice. In the same way, the man has to cooperate with you. He has to understand that he's leading you. Like every leader has to ask their staff, their managers or whoever, what do you think? Where do you think we should go? What is happening? What's going on? For example, if the saying is a man provides the house and a woman turns the house into a home, he will come and say, what's happening in the home? What do I need to be aware of? What's going on with the kids? This is how that dynamic works. Honestly, this is what the traditional dynamic is. And unfortunately, we've come so far away from that a lot of people look at that as foreign. We come from an African background. I'm not saying it's a perfect background, but that dynamic is still evident. But we've been able to see some of the problems that come with that. But under no circumstances are we going to say it is better to live a modern way of doing things. Now, granted, if you and your husband, you and your wife agree that you're going to do these things this way, none of our opinion matters. Do what works for you, but just find someone that wants the exact same thing as you. Don't find a person and try to mold them into that. You're just going to be problematic. Take a step away and wait to find someone. If you feel like maybe you need to calm down a bit, then calm down. If you feel like you need to continue, then continue. But ultimately, I even lead to, what do you want? Sometimes in life, I think people don't know how to be happy. They say, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. But when you look at it, how it applies in an actual situation, I just shake my head, because it's like, do you not know how to be happy? Like, what are you chasing? What are you trying to, or even run away from? It doesn't make sense to me. This is why, for me, scripture is one of the most powerful things that we can read. Simply, not even the most, one of the most, it is the most. Because no matter how we feel, if we're going to call ourselves Christians, again, if you're not a Christian, fine, whatever. But if we're going to call ourselves Christians, there's a reason why we need to follow these principles. There's a reason why, because it works. And it has always worked. But we need to get there. And don't get me wrong, the type of person I am, I'm very hard on guys. I'm someone who says, as guys, we need to do better. We are falling short of where we were. 1000%. We need to correct ourselves. We need to help each other and say, bro, this can't run. I have friends that are doing madness, and every time they call me, I told them off. I say, don't make a mockery of God, of the prayers that you prayed, of the fasting that you did, of the promises that you made. Don't make a mockery of God because of women. And you can read in between the lines of it. In a situation, but you're trying to incorporate other women. Nah, I don't play those games. And don't get me wrong, I've been in Christ for 8 years. I used to be that same guy, but because I'm here, I'm fully understanding the effect that it has. It's one thing if you don't have those morals, if you don't really care, but it's another thing if you do. I'm going to tell you to your face, don't do that. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. Because someone needs to tell you. If not me, who else? So while I'm here, I'm going to tell you. So these are the things we need to be saying each other as men. But ladies, I'm going to say this. Accepting the bare minimum is not going to help this situation. It's not going to help this situation. If you truly want to respect a man that he needs to feel, stop accepting the bare minimum, or stop accepting nothing. Stop accepting rubbish. Wait for the guy who's going to commit to you. And you spoke about earlier, coach. Wait for a guy who's going to show you that true intention. Stop being so quick to be in something. It's not necessary. It doesn't serve you. You wasn't here to be in 10, 20 different relationships, to have 20, 30, 40, 50 sexual partners. We wasn't made that way at all. Yes, the dynamic of men, it affects us mentally and emotionally less. Spiritually, it can be the same, but mentally and emotionally less. But there is no woman who has slept with a crazy amount of guys that say she's mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healthy. Absolutely not. So just wait. Take your time. Relax. Sit back. Because your respect and love for yourself should be way more. There's no reason to get frustrated at all. And that's one of the things I had to learn. There's no reason to get frustrated as a man. I was going on blogs, writing comments, and I was telling guys just to focus on yourself. Because you can't change someone how they're going to be. You can't change their opinion. Leave them. Focus on yourself, and the right woman will come your way. Well, I don't understand. Why do we love fighting in this day and age? But it's because we're emotional. I'll leave it there, bro.
No, bro, you spoke a word, bro. And I think, what is interesting about this is, I would say that, do women want to lead relationships? That's my question. Let me ask that question. Do women want to lead relationships? If you have a man, could you respect him if you were leading? If you were leading and he submitted to you in the format that we spoke about, would you be comfortable with that? Would you be okay with that? Is that how you want your relationships to be? Because I can guarantee you, many of you be calling this guy all types of words and names. You know what I mean, right? And the reason being is because, like I said, subconsciously, most of us subscribe to this way of dynamic. But what we do want is a healthy people within that dynamic. What we don't want is people that are toxic within that dynamic. Most women, again, would want a good man to lead. We consistently hear women saying, I'm tired. I want to be a housewife. I just want to be able to choose whether I have kids and go to work, or I want to stay at home. We want roles. Most of us want some particular type of roles. Some of us can't afford it. And that's the reality of it. A lot of us can't afford it because a lot of us are average. And that includes me. So we can't afford certain things. We're going to have more of a...
Huh? What are you talking about? You're not average, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not average. Let me start downplaying myself. You know what I mean? I don't want a taxman to come after me. But let's so sometimes we can't afford something. So it looks different. It's a partnership. But even in a partnership, there's a defaulting to someone taking control at certain instances. So let me flesh it out to what I'm really saying here. Okay. when we say that the man is the head, or we say the man is supposed to lead, and let me say a better way of saying this, a man's supposed to lead and the woman's supposed to submit. What that looks like is not, and I think Andre put a good point, it's not about extinguishing the woman. None of what we said has said any of those lines. And actually, in my good leadership, what I should do is also understand there are different types of leadership for different occasions. The problem is most people are only aware of one or two. Laissez-faire, meaning that I don't care, or the one where it's autocratic in the sense of it's just dictatorship and it's just you doing whatever you want to do. And when people see dictatorship leadership, they don't want to be in that space, right? So when we talk about the abuse of submission, it's because someone's got a dictator mindset when it comes to leadership. But the reality is my good leadership should be that in certain times I may need to be authoritative because in this situation, there's a hole in the boat and the water's filling up and I need to make a decision quick and I haven't got time. We haven't got time to have a back and forth fight. Plug the hole. You know what I mean? But the majority of decisions don't come in an authoritative space. They come in a democratic space. For instance, we're looking to move somewhere. I say to you, hey, Leicester's looking good, or let's move to America, or, you know what I mean? Or we're going to move to Peru or something, right? And you may say to me, babe, I don't want to move to Peru. We may have a democratic conversation about this because actually, do you know what? It doesn't serve us better to move to Peru. Now, unless the Lord has called me to go to Peru, definitely, I'm not about to impress on that and be like, hey, we need to go to Peru because the Lord has called me there, right? If the Lord hasn't called me somewhere from a Christian perspective, I don't need to usurp that. It's like, well, okay, babe says she doesn't want to go to Peru. Let's choose another country. Where do you want to go then, babe? She says Brazil. We look at it. Brazil might be better. It may not be better. We may choose another place again. So there's going to be conversation in this aspect. When we go to buy a TV, let me make it mainly very plain. When we go to buy a TV, yeah, I may not know much about TVs. You may know more about TVs. So I'll be like, babe, what do you think? What TV we getting? I thought a 40-inch looks good. She looks and goes, yeah, but the pixelation ain't great. So let's look at another TV. Okay, let's look at another TV then, right? You may have car situation. You go to the mechanic. I may know more. I may not. You may know more, right, about cars. We get to the mechanic and mechanic telling us £300. I'm looking at it and say, hey, sir, the carburetor is not the one that's supposed to here. Come on, don't do that to us. It's more like £100. I may take the lead on that because I have a better skill set in that area. When we talk about the defaulting of a decision making to last thing, it often comes down to when we're butting heads and nobody seems to want to move. At that point, I will have to take a executive decision. You may not like it, and it may look like some type of way. But if I've built up brownie points with you, basically what I mean by that is you've seen my leadership with you. You've seen that I'm a fair man. You've seen I'm a wise man. You see my man that's gentle with you. Then what it should be is that, okay, I don't like the decision, but I trust you, and I'm going to go with you. That's what we're talking about, right? What people are discussing is dictatorship. Dictatorship shouldn't be existing in relationships. We are not in a dictatorship. Do you know what I'm saying? We're not in a dictatorship, which is why marrying the right woman is important and why marrying the right man is important. Because in that process of me and you dating, you should have seen some characteristics with me like, hey, look, okay, he said this, he said that, okay, but he actually did this and he actually did that. He's treated me with respect. He's gentle with me. He shows me love. You know what I mean? He listens to my pleas. You know what I mean? The needs that I want, that I have, he caters to those needs. He serves me. In that same instance, then when it does come down to the crunch and we're like, listen, we say we want to buy a 5-bedroom house or 4-bedroom house, but you know what? Our finances are saying 4 bedrooms. Let's go with a 4-bedroom. It is what it is. You're like, no, I want it. And I'm like, no, we have to take the 4-bedroom house. You now can go back onto what I've done in the past and ask yourself, is this a man that's wise? Okay, he is wise. Has he been gentle with me? Yeah. Does he love me? Yes. Does he take care of me? Yes. Okay, great. Boom. Not dictatorship. Dictatorship is not where we're at. You know, we don't support that and we don't encourage that. And that's what I'm saying about accountability for everybody. We should be doing what we said we're going to do. Our words and our actions should match. And our love for you, because that's how you're measuring us, should be on display. It should be on display. And vice versa. When I'm looking at you, I should look at somebody who's meek and mild, as the Bible was describing, right? As somebody who is gentle with even their responses. When they disagree with me, how do they disagree with me? Are they going to tell me to shut the F up? Or am I going to tell you to shut the F up when I believe that it's my decision to take? You should see that. I'm not loving you in that space. So you know, we all have to look at that perspective and go, we don't want dictatorships. We want relationships where we can both see that there are times where there's democratic, there's autocratic, there's authoritative, there's sometimes coaching. I may need to coach you. You may need to coach me on something. You know, I have a friend who's also in sexual violence. Do you know how long she's been coaching me for? Blood. She's been coaching me for time, blood, to learn. So it's not the case of just, you know, just doing whatever you want. And my final point is this, and I said this to my friend. We was in Ghana, and she ordered some food and it came 3 hours late. I swear I can't believe this. How the guy broke down and he tried to make some excuses, nonsense, right? And he's on a bike and he's talking and, you know, making excuses. So I'm downstairs. I've come down with her, innit? And she's like, "What happened to you? Why are you 3 hours late?" She's angry, and I get it, right? But then she said something. She says, I think she said, why Jimmy? Meaning like, you're stupid. You're dumb. The moment she said that, in for us as Ghanaians, that's a heavy insult. You might as well said F off. The equal weight is the same, right? When she says that, the conversation has shifted now. He's got off his bike, he's coming off his bike, and he's stood on front of the bike now. And now his vision is only her. He can only see her, right? He's angry. And I said to her, stop talking. Stop. She's still going on. I said, stop talking. You not see what he's doing? His body language is shifting. He's about to move. When women talk about us and men not protecting, this is the kind of stuff we protect from. Sometimes protecting you from yourself. She's still talking. I'm telling her, stop. Let it go. The guy is getting angry and agitated. And if he now blows you, I have to get involved because you're my friend. I can't leave you alone. What kind of man would you come to a store and say, well, I let my friend get punched in the face by a guy? Would you now honor me? Would you respect me as a man? You see, you expect me to step in because I'm a man, right? So she's still talking, saying what he's saying, and he's getting agitated. And I can see him creeping forward. So I stood in between, and I said, my guy, hey, yeah, like, calm down, chill. And I said to her, listen, leave it alone. She's still talking over the back of me. I said, stop. Chill. Like, if he starts throwing blows now, I've got to get involved. Stop. When we finished the conversation, went upstairs, and I told her, I said, I don't like that. You put me in a dangerous position. I told you to stop several times. You didn't hear me, but you thought you were equal footing to him. He was no longer going to argue with you. He was about to come to blows with you. At that point, you're not equal. You may think you can fight a man, but you're putting yourself in a very dangerous position, right? And you put me in a dangerous position, and I'm telling you to stop. Let me handle it. I will talk to him. But because you felt like you were equal to him, you're now trying to cuss, and he's getting angry. You can see he's starting to move towards you. I'm like, no, relax. Let me handle it. These are the things I'm talking about. It's not my wife. It's my friend. But if it was my wife, I would have had to, when we get inside, I'm like, yo, this is not how we handle things. When that kind of stuff happens, let me handle it. Because if it gets to that part where it comes to blows, I have to get involved. So things like this, and I know some women might be saying, I would never do that. That's cool. If you never would do that, and I respect that. Thank you for not doing that. I'm just telling you that this is what sometimes people are facing. And sometimes the protection is protecting you from yourself and allowing that this is my role as a man in this world and society, and it's how other men see it. So when that gets to a certain point, I had to step in. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you know, but, you know, take it as you want to take it. But, you know, I just thought I'd share that point of view. And again, it's not that every woman does that, but just kind of, you know, kind of breaking that point down. Do you want to say something, Barbara? Go for it.
Yeah, I'll even elaborate on that, right? In those situations, if something was to happen to to a woman in those situations, even she would blame the man. How can you allow that to happen? Why was you standing there? Forget about what everyone else says. So to me personally, all women want a man to lead. All women want a man to play his position. It's just that we live in a time now where people are picking and choosing what they want, which is fine. If that's what works for you, that's what works for you. But this is where we are. But it just kind of makes me think of, if I said to you as a woman, I'm going to give you conditional love, but I expect unconditional respect, how would you feel? You think I'm crazy? So when certain people say certain things to justify not showing respect, to justify fighting or arguing, what you're saying is that, truthfully, you want the man to give you unconditional love. There's no woman who would say no. I'm not saying we will have the ability, because that's something very difficult to achieve, but that's how you want him to approach you. But there's the same women who say that are the same women who will say, Yeah, but I'm only going to respect him sometimes. I'm only going to respect him on my terms. I'm going to give him unconditional love. So this answers a question that was spoken about earlier. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because you're not in alignment. And with the scriptures that we read, this is how you keep an alignment. It goes back to you're both serving each other. Now, even you got a comment about handling money on. I'll even use my relationship now as an example, right? My missus is an accountant. I said to her, handle the money. I earn more. But I said to her, handle the money. I was fine with that. It's not about me being, because I'm the man, therefore I got to handle everything, be controlling over everything. I said, handle the money. She told me she doesn't want to. Just because she's an accountant doesn't mean that she should. She said, you know what, at this stage, I'll probably handle the money better anyway. And I said, fine, it's no problem. For those who missed it, we talked earlier about relationships are like a boardroom. Every opinion, every thought process is to be considered. However, every leader has to make, like Coach said, executive decisions. There is no leader on this earth who doesn't have to make an executive decision. Even if people want to go one way and you want to go another way, even the majority might say A, it doesn't mean that they're right. And this is one of the things that we have to understand. Like in that leadership position, this is how difficult it is because you have to truly put your life on the line. This is why we're advocating for doing things in God's way, because while he's trying to do that, he needs you to have his back. While he's out there trying to get done what he needs to get done, he needs you to be praying that he's able to come home safe. That's not going to happen effectively if you're at loggerheads, if you're fighting, if you're arguing, if you're trying to be his position or he's trying to be your position. Just think about this. Men are not advocating to play a woman's role. We are taught from young, this is the role we got to play. Even if women say it don't matter, the majority of women want us to play our role and do it well. The complaint is when we don't do it well. The distrust comes from when we don't do it well. So to me, I don't look at it from a place of, this is not how it should be. I'm looking at it from a place of, people are only doing right now based on how they feel comfortable. And to me, if I get it, when you meet a guy who is a certain way, life just feels differently. Whatever was a struggle with men in the past, for some reason, it's not a struggle today. I'll give another example. Ochechino, right? Chad Johnson. The woman he's with now said to him, in her previous relationship, she couldn't be free with money the way that she is now. She couldn't even talk about it. She couldn't even envision them working together when it came with money. But when she met Chad, the game changed. But that's simply down to the way that he is. But with the way that he is, she was respectful from the beginning. She didn't say, okay, I'm not going to, until you show me, that's what I'm, no. She was respectful from the beginning. And you can see that the way he loves her is pure. Like he loves her pure. And this is the things that are admirable to see, because you look at the dynamic of their relationship, you can tell that they make cooperative decisions. But with the space that he is in, and there hasn't been a reality show or whatever for us to see, but you can see that he is truly playing the role of a man. He is a man in that relationship, and she is a woman in that relationship. He is masculine and she is feminine, and the dynamic works. It works. Now, the caveat is, if you know his story, you know that he's got a crazy amount of money still from his NFL days. He didn't spend that crazy. So naturally, the type of person he is, it goes back to the money dynamic. As much as people don't like talking about it, for whatever reason, the money dynamic does come into how much a man is respected, which is why a lot of women, when they become the primary earners, when they earn a lot of money, they feel that they should be respected. They should be able to rule the roost. They should be able to control things. Because this question is really about submitting to a man. But when a lot of women get into those positions, they want the man to submit to them. So that's the confusion right there. So if it's really about making decisions together, why when it's the other way around, all of a sudden there's a problem? And these are the things that do happen. Yeah, you're always going to have one or two women who literally don't care. But these are the things as men that we experience, which is why we're taught, you know what, regardless of what we're told, we need to always play with our position, because we don't get the grace to do anything differently. Because we'll be called all different types of names. We will be fought against. We will be attacked. keyworded to death, but ultimately we still need to be who we're going to be. And that's it. That's why for me, I don't really get into these arguments with people, because I know regardless of what they're saying, not only will they eventually see it, but when they eventually receive it, they always come back to apologize, always come back to say you was right, always come back to now I need to talk to my girls, now I need to talk to my people, because the way we were doing things before was the very reason why we was always in problematic situations. Over to you, bro.
Yeah. You know what? It's also interesting because I think someone put a comment and I loved it because it's exactly what we're talking. Do you know what's so funny? This is what else had said. Yeah, as an accountant, we get tired of numbers at work, then come home and do it too. When I said in the beginning that women get tired, this is what I'm talking about. See, when we say it, then you be like, we don't get tired. No, you get tired. You went to work and you're tired. You know, you know what I mean? It's not easy, right? It's not easy. So I said it in a way of like, when you end up playing a role, it's very difficult to play that other person's role because you wasn't made necessarily to play that role. But we also understand, like, again, because of partnership, how things work. So oftentimes you hear women say, listen, I don't have to make decisions. I'd rather default to him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not every woman. Some women will not. Some will not. You know, someone would like to go the opposite way. You know, they like to make decisions. But a lot of women will tell you they get tired of making decisions, and I understand. You know, me too. I don't even want to rest cry. Let me find a woman that will just make all the decisions. And you see, find out I'll probably end up with somebody who ends up not taking into my account, because again, like I said, when you put a woman in that particular role, it can become very difficult. Because most women want to be able to play the role that God has designed for them. And when I say that, I go back to Genesis 3. Right? In terms of our roles. If you read it about what happened with Adam and Eve, and you see what happened, the woman will pine after the husband and the husband will rule thee. But the rulership should not be dictatorship. It should be a rulership from love. Therefore, then it becomes a particular way, the way he rules, okay? All right? You know, the way that he rules, the woman will respect his rulership, right? A country that it rules and thinks about its citizens, the citizenships ends up respecting the government because they understand that the government has its best interest at heart. A government that takes advantage of the citizens rebel against the government. That's life. So it has to be ruled in the right particular way. So, you know, the way that you rule in your household, yes, I do believe I have the final say. But before it gets the final say, we've had conversations, we've actually fleshed this out. And it could be sometimes a few days, sometimes it can be a few weeks, depending on what the situation is. You know what I'm saying? It's not a straight, oh my God, I just get to do whatever I want to do. There's a lot, bro, let me tell you this now for free. Listen, if there's things that my wife does better than me, shoot, I'm going to pass it over. I'm going to pass that over. Why would I want to stress on things I'm not good at? Me personally, that's not my fight. And that's what I'm saying to you. A man who does that is even prideful. You should see that from early. Because he's carrying a lot of pride. Me personally, if you can do things better than I can, shoot, please take it over. By all means. You know what I mean? Like, yo, I want to marry an accountant because it'd be tough out here. You know, filing them taxes. By all means, get her on the taxes. You know what I mean? Why should I struggle on that? So for me personally, a man who truly values a woman and values himself even knows that, bro, I don't want to be doing everything. I don't want to be making every decision. A lot of people have dated controllers, abusive men, and they label it as men being men. No. I don't want to do all that. Ask any quality man out there. We don't want to do everything. Shoot, I want to be able to pass things to you.
Trust me.
I want to be able to say, listen, babe, you got this. You know, and even people who are in very high financial marriages, they employ people to do certain jobs within the household, whether it's nanny, whether it's chef, whether it's an accountant, whether it's their personal assistant or whatever. They employ people to do things to make their life that much easier. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be doing everything. Oh, shoot, please do something if you can do something, because by all means, I want to focus on just creating content and doing things that are going to make me money. I don't want to be thinking about every single thing around the world that I've got to do. Oh, if you can take some of the load off, be happy. And women too, the same thing too. The reason why you want us is also because you want us to take some of the load off. You know what I mean? So yeah, if that's what if you're really looking for a relationship, we are looking for a servitude on both sides, and we know that life is not always the same. It shifts and it moves. We know that things happen, and at points in time, my role may slightly change, your role may slightly change, but our original roles as it's set, that's how we need it to be. And if I'm leading correctly in the place of love, my wife should be able to trust me. And at the same point in time too, if she's respecting me, I should also be considering her in my decision making and not just going anything I want to do. That's not how it should work. I'm not here for dictatorship. I don't roll like that. So, final words, Janison, because I've kept you long. So final words, bro.
Bro. Do you know, there's so much I can say from the comments from the chat, and thank you all. Right, there's so much that we can speak about, but let me speak about something that's a little bit different. I think it was
give me time and I'll pick up.
I'm not sure, it's gone from my screen actually.
That's right. You say what it is roughly.
It was basically saying there's only one place in the house that I want to be ruled.
And it ain't the kitchen.
And no, do you know what? There's some wives that will say the kitchen is my house. That's very true. I tell you what goes in here.
What goes in here?
There you go. Don't come to me do anything. So that does happen, right? But the reason why I wanted to draw that out is because that aspect of being dominated in the bedroom, although there are women who like to try and dominate a man, that is a turn on. And the question is, why is that a turn on? And that goes back to something I think we talked off camera last week about, where as much as some women have an issue with a man putting his foot down and saying, no, I'm making an executive decision, or this is not how we're going to run things, or do you know what, you're lacking in this area, we need to do better, A, B, C. As much as some of those women will say, the way he spoke to me, I didn't like it. Oh, he's this and that. These same women turn around and say, but I loved it. I loved him telling me. It turned me on.
Yep.
So the question I have, ladies, the contradiction is wild because it's confusing. So can someone explain if there's an issue with a man being a man, let's just say that, and the key word is he's authoritative, he's controlling. Why, when it comes to your natural bodily functions, it does something for you? I want someone to answer that. Z, what did you mean then? And even if, end of the day, I hear this all the time. Every time I make this point to my missus, she starts laughing because she knows it's true.
They said they want you to say it again.
When sometimes I talk, I just talk. I don't particularly register everything I say. I just let the spirit lead. But the whole point is, in the bedroom, the thing about a man dominating a woman in the bedroom, yes, there are women who will say, I like when I'm making a man squirm like a fish, well, I'm just really giving it to him. That's fine. But the overwhelmingly, women say they want to be dominated in the bedroom. They want a man to be a man in that capacity. When it comes to decisions or arguments, etc., a lot of women say they want their man to be a man and they don't want to feel like they can get away with anything. They don't want to feel like they can walk all over him. They want him to put his foot down. They want him to be principled. They want him to say no. As much as some of those women might say, I don't like the way he spoke to me. I'm not even talking about that he's disrespectful, but I don't like the way he talked to me. Maybe he made me feel like a child, made me feel small. As much as there might be tantrums or keywords or any sort of issues that she might say she has with what he did, a lot of these women will turn around, whether to their friend or to the guy, and say, do you know what? That turned me on. I loved it. I love it when you do that. As much as I might feel a bit funny, I love it when you assume the position that I want you to assume. So the question is, ladies, why the contradiction? Again, why is it picking and choosing when you accept him being dominant or authoritative or just telling you no? It's sex. So then, but the natural body is loving it. So am I right to think that the naturally women want to be dominated? They just have lost that trust for a particular man to be able to take control of things. Domination, that I'm not talking about in a negative way. I'm not saying he's going to lead you down a bad path. I'm not going to say he's going to treat you badly. I'm talking about where you can completely trust a guy to just lead you in the right way, truly look after you. Like, babe, whatever you want. I'll play my position here. Whatever you want, whatever needs to get done. It's cool, babe. I will do that. Laughing at the same comment, yeah?
Someone said there should be a tiger in the bedroom and on the streets.
My hormones and my mind don't always agree.
I mean, that's why I said that men should lead, because the hormones are out here telling you something else. That's why you need us, baby. But no, I mean, that's a real good question. I think the reality is, like I said, I think the reality is most women want a man to lead, and I think, you know, in all jokes aside, I do believe most women want a man to lead. You just want the right type of man to lead, and I think that's what it comes down to. You want the right type of man to lead you, you know, and as long as it's not vindictive or it's not a place of dictatorship per se. You want that man to lead you in a particular way that will, show that he cares and he has your best interest at heart, you know. And I know that's not always easy. You know, that's not always the way that a lot of times we see these stories. You know, that a lot of men don't always lead in those particular ways. So I can understand, but the reality is, most women want a man to lead. That's why they like the bad boy, because the bad boy is going to lead you, whether you like or not. He's going to lead you. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's why the qualities of him, not necessarily him being bad, but the qualities that he carries is translatable. It's not that, you know, you're supposed to have full autonomy over the other person, but it's more of a case of, does he take control when it's needed to? Right? Does he take control when it's needed to? So, yeah, maybe that's a conversation next week, actually.
Do you know what? But I can make a point on that, actually, even in my life. I can say there were times where I felt like I had to take control and say, this is what it is with my missus, right? She may have not liked it in the moment. I think we talked about it last week. She may have reacted in a way that we can all guess. But ultimately, because someone mentioned it in terms of, where is it? I think the reality is that we men, or I guess the English, but to lead, but we want a man who will also affirm and pour into us as we do them, right? She will tell you for free, the way I love her is way more than anyone's loved her in her life. The way that I affirm her, the way that I pour into her, she is a completely different person than the person she was when we met. And everyone can see that. So as much as when I put my foot down and things like that, she may not like it, she trusts me. She can even see the things that I put my foot down about, I've always been right about. This is one of the things that she's able to see. This is why we talk about leading with wisdom, because if you're always making bad decisions and wrong decisions, I'm sorry, guys, shut up. There's nothing we can say. She has a right not to trust us, so what can we say? But if you are a man who can make good decisions and doesn't behave erratic, love your woman properly, because I agree, you're going to get so much out of her that you probably haven't seen before. And these are the things I say to guys. These are the things I say to myself. Because as much as I'm going to put my foot down, she has to be able to trust. She has to be able to respect me. And it's because that is there. Now, I've been in a situation where I've done the same thing, but the respect wasn't there. The trust wasn't there. A completely different relationship. It almost was an insult for me to put my foot down. But I had to look at myself properly and say, this is not how it's going to go. So Jason continued to work in himself and realize, how did it get there in the first place? And this is where I'm at today. Like, I've always been like a man's man, but I've never been a red pill type of, I don't care about women. I don't care about how you say, I don't care about, I always thought that as stupid. Because in order to have a happy relationship, you're going to consider each other regardless of positioning. You're going to make decisions together regardless of positioning, but there will be times where you got to put your foot down. So when the Bible talks about weaker vessel, because we didn't actually specify what does it mean as a weaker vessel, and we can. I mean, there's no time now, but We can go into a Bible study to see what the historical wording of that was to actually understand. But we can talk about many things even in today's world. We can talk about from an emotional aspect. We can talk about the impact of hurt, right? We can talk about the impact of suffering and struggle and even expectations. We can talk about who is the one that's affected more by a negative relationship. We talk about, most of the time it's women who leave relationships. Most of the time it's women who are in crisis mode, so to speak, and they don't want their man to be that way. So we can talk about, at the right time, who is the man? Is he covering? Is he giving you the word of God? Is he saying, don't worry, things will be okay? And he's holding your hand and saying, don't worry, trust me. Don't worry, trust in God. Is he making you feel safe? These are the things that we talk about when we talk about a man leading. These are aspects that go into it. But you have to want to see those things, ladies. You have to want to receive those things. Because if you don't, it's going to be a struggle, not only for him to do those things, but for him to be effective. But I agree. It goes back to, as a man, if you're not like that in the first place, if you're just harsh, if you're hard, if you don't even know how to spell the word love or show love, which some men are, don't get me wrong, you're in for some pain. You're probably going to lose the woman that you really do love because you don't know how to serve her. And that's the key. Understanding, how do I serve this person who is in front of me, despite what I've been through, if I want to make it work. And as long as we understand that point and we work towards it, because we give each other grace, then things should work out if that's the person you're supposed to be with. Because things happen, so I have to say it that way, because things happen. It doesn't mean this person is bad or this person is wrong. Things happen. But when everything falls into place and you're serving each other in the way that needs to be, you realize it's a completely different relationship. And what I pray for is everyone in the chats who is afraid, who hasn't experienced this, that in the same way, not just me, not just soon to be coach, not just people around the world, but you experience this type of love. The men experience this type of respect, where it changes your perspective on everything. There you go. It was needed. I admired and loved that. See, that's what a real man does. If Adam had done the same, we wouldn't be suffering now. That's leadership.
My internet wants to try and play out with me, boy. Must be the snow, because I am phasing in and out, I'm sure. But
No, you're good, you know.
Are we good? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Wasn't sure. But I think in this regard, I think what?
No, said our maybe was directed to me. Am I pandering? No, I'm really this type of man. Again, I wish I could get my missus on here, but she doesn't want to be in camp, so I'm really that type of man. Coach is really that type of man. We've had to learn to do that to the right woman, don't get me wrong, but this is we're not guys who are just going to speak for the sake of it, trust me. That we
have to live this.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, and there's many men out there that are like this, you know what I mean? There are many men that like this. I just tell, like you said, you might have to wait a little bit longer. But also I'd say that, everybody's got to work on themselves, you know what I mean? A man and woman got to work on themselves so that they're ready for the right kind of person. So they can also spot that person appropriately as well. Because a lot of people will pander, a lot of people will lie, a lot of people will not do what they say they will do. So the way to do that is also, first and foremost, make sure that you as an individual, male or female, man or woman, you got to make sure that you actually are doing the work to heal yourself if you're in need of it, and to have a right perspective on how relationships are supposed to look like as well. So both parties need to do that, so they can spot the right opportunity, But yeah, listen, guys and girls, women and men, I should even say, not guys and girls, women and men, we appreciate y'all for coming through, sitting with us for almost 2 hours. It's good conversation. Good food was cooked up today. I was with my brother, Jay Anderson. Bro, where can they find you? Where can they get in contact with you? Where can they connect with you, bro?
Well, my Instagram is Jay Anderson King. I have a ministry called Kingdom in Need of God, Kingdom in Need of Greatness. It's a men's ministry. I'm going to make sure it explodes this year. My brother Coach is going to be one of my... sorry, just getting a call through. I'm good now. I'm going to be doing this with my brother Coach. He's going to be on the channel as well. There's going to be a YouTube that I will create very soon. We're doing this together, man. So we really need to speak to the men out there. We really need to give some of the wisdom that God has given us. And we never say that we're wise, but when we speak and we see things come into play and we get the feedback, we realize that God is really good. Because there's a reason why he said things. And if we can be that conduit, if we can be that messenger, as strange as it may sound to a whole bunch of people, we're only trying to say, if you want to be happy, if you want peace, if you want to be relieved and lift off the world from your shoulders, this is the way to go. This is how you need to see things. It doesn't mean it's going to be overnight. It's going to take time, but there is a way that we all need to walk when we are ready to walk that race. That's it.
Yep. Listen, this is how we're going to be doing this stuff. So we appreciate you guys. Listen, we're going to be back on later on tonight at 7 p.m. EST. That's in 2 hours time. I got a live for you guys. It's going to be a story. Okay. It's going to be a story. I wanted to leave my ex and then he burnt my car. Listen, it's going to be crazy. But I got someone to come on and tell us a story. If you remember, you were here some weeks back, we had a live and someone was telling their story. I don't ruin it, but in 2 hours time, this conversation is going to be wavy. So make sure you guys tune in 2 hours time. Yes, I tried to leave my ex and they burnt my car. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Not me. It's not my story time, guys. It's another lady. So she's going to tell us her story. So
I'll be tuning in. That sounds like a story.
It's a Madzeline, bro. It's a Lazaline. All right, listen, audience, thank you so much. You know, I can't leave you without something. You know what I mean? I always have to leave here with something. So you're going to leave with this.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
He's from around the way. We are leaving with something. They like to say,